The Talking Heads, Boston, The Cars, even Aerosmith. You know these bands, and you may love them too. But did you know that they once walked the same streets that you stroll every day? That's right. On the second floor of this very building, music history was made at the Great Northern Studio. You are standing in front of the building occupying 63 Main Street. It was originally built in the early 1910s, and the second floor opened as Colonial Hall. It served as an early movie theater, showing anything from newsreels to silent films with musical accompaniment, and it eventually doubles as a dance hall. There are records of orchestras being called in from other towns to perform at Maynard balls, and even what we can now consider a battle of the bands. As Colonial Hall demonstrates perfectly, Maynard has always been a hub of music. The Maynard Brass Band was founded in 1875, and it later renamed itself to the Maynard Military Band. The Finnish National Band was created in 1910. A bandstand was even installed on the corner of Walnut and Main Streets, allowing the MMB ample performance space. Flash forward to the 20th century. It's the era of rock and roll and the fame and fortune that came with it. A club in Boston's Kenmore Square, called the Rathskeller, or the Rat for short, has become the city's hub for the punk rock scene. Looking back now, we can identify a pipeline between the Rat and Maynard. Many bands came to the studio at 63 Main Street to record demos, albums, or live performances. Opened by partners Peter Casperson and Bob Runstein, the studio was founded as the Great Northern Studio but went by many other names, including the Northern Recording Studio, Northern Sound, and the Northern Lights Recording Studio. Runstein was well respected in the audio production industry. His treatise, Modern Recording Techniques, is now in its 5th edition in print and is still revered to this day. The studio was later taken over by Bill Reisman, who authorized the official name change to Northern Studio. So we know who ran the studio, but who recorded there? Well, as mentioned, the Cars first recorded a demo tape of their hit song Just What I Needed, right here in Maynard. Their predecessor band, Cap'n Swing, also recorded here too. The Talking Heads recorded the first side of their album. The name of this band is Talking Heads for a radio broadcast in 1977, but it wasn't released on an album until 1982. The Tommy Bolin Band recorded live at Northern Lights in 1976, and the band Thunder Train recorded their single Hot for Teacher, as well as their album Teenage Suicide a year too. The band Boston credited the studio on their 1978 album Don't Look Back as the location where the piano on the track A Man I'll Never Be was recorded. And finally, Aerosmith occupied the studio for 3 days working on what would become Toys in the Attic. A recording aide at the time recalled how teenagers would hang around the back door and the sounds of hard rock filled the sleepy town of Maynard. Sadly, the studio is no longer with us. Today, Studio In Situ owns and operates from the space. But the legacy of the Northern Studio lives on in the giants of rock and roll, and we have our small suburban town to thank for some of the greatest songs in music history.